This is the Platinum Podcast.
Welcome to the Platinum Podcast, AJ.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We've been having an interesting conversation for the past 20 minutes, despite some technical issues. I'd love to start right off and dive in. Who are you? What are you doing in the world, my friend?
Man, so my name is AJ. My full name is actually Aurimas. So
Sorry, slow down. I didn't quite get that.
Aurimas.
Okay,
Yeah, so
Aurimas.
Born and raised in Lithuania.
Yeah.
Just from my accent, you can't really tell. It's like he kind of sounds American, but then he has this funky accent. So I don't know where you're from. So I'm Lithuanian and born and raised. Really don't have many ties with it because my family lives in Norway and I lived in the States, lived in the Southeast Asian region for the past 5 years. So not really connected to it anymore. But anyway, what I'm doing in the world is more important than where I'm from. So that is human optimization and high performance. And that's something that we talked about, how important it is to have more optimized humans who are actually tapping into their true potential, because then we're able to raise the vibration of people around us. It's not just for us, it's for people who engage with us.
Yeah, it just has a positive impact on the world. If everyone's that 1% better,
That's
then
it.
everyone collectively is going to improve 100 times over, right?
That's it. And that's something that we don't take into consideration because we think that we can reverse our shitty habits and our wounds that we have been carrying for 20 plus years in a week. And that's what everybody wants. That's what marketing ultimately just capitalizes on, because people still believe that they can do that. And sorry to tell you, you cannot.
That's not the way it goes. Literally, this is like the big problem we have at Platinum University. Everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone thinks that that's how it works. And it's not. If you earn money really quickly, inevitably you haven't got the frequency to hold it. You'll probably lose that money.
Precisely. Whoever said that if they actually divided all the money in the world equally, the money would end up in the same hands.
Yeah.
Again, within like a period of time, which is true, because you have to have the skills to hold that cash to actually be a high performer.
100%. It's just another metric, isn't it?
Right.
It's one metric of success, and it's the one that everyone seems to zero in on and really focus on. And everyone kind of forgets that you need a skill set in order to acquire any metric of success, right? So, I mean, that's a really good starting point when talking about human optimization. What does that look like? What different areas of life do you take into consideration when trying to optimize a human?
Good question, man. Because you see, when people reach success and get optimized in one area of life, success monetarily, as a prime example, they actually tend to forget that there are more things in the world than money. It's like you just solved your money problem. And what about your relationships? What about your body? What about just the way you treat yourself? What about your mindset and what's going on between your ears? So I look at it through the lens of 4 areas. So that is biology, leadership, efficiency, and mindset. Biology has some subcategories as well. So sleep optimization, stress management, nutrition, movement and exercise, your environment. And then when it comes to your to leadership, for example, how do you lead yourself? How do you lead others? And self-leadership is something that is not debated enough, I believe. Efficiency, how do you structure your day? Like, how can you actually stay on track if you don't have a tracker? So it's like you have to have those little checkpoints where you can check in with yourself and be soberly honest with what's happening, where you're going, if you're on track, if you're off track. And oftentimes you need a person to help you with that, like someone else from the outside, because we have so many blind spots. And we're talking about this, especially in a relationship, how those blind spots are really, they tend to be shined on when you're in a relationship with a person. And
they're
mindset.
the biggest ones.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal to me how many people are hugely successful in financial spectrum, in terms of business, but then their relationships are an absolute shower of shit, and it's an area that's massively neglected.
Right.
So how does that look? How do you look at optimizing a relationship?
Oh man. So for my personal experience, I had a lot of failed relationships, obviously, as one does. And now I'm in a one that is just the exponential growth that I've experienced within a couple of months. It's been more deeper than I've ever had in years. So for example, I had 3-year relationships and they were more shallow than the relationship that I have right now. And it's only lasted for less than half a year. And that's the beauty of it. When you have that awareness, when your partner has that awareness, and you're able to call each other out on your bullshit, which is one of the most important things that we don't do, because we tend to kind of, defer that problem, but probably defer this problem magnified over long term. So having that sober honesty to face your shit and call your partner out on their shit, and actually not in a way that is offensive, or not in a way that is actually attacking, but it's connecting. Because if you don't really care about the person, if you don't tell them the things as they actually are.
Yeah, it's really powerful, that,
Right.
I think. And this is hugely important, not only for relationship, but business as well, right? You have to be able to give and receive feedback.
Right.
And this is it's an actual skill set, in my opinion. There has to be really clear communication, that you do it in a really particular way. There's this amazing saying that I heard from a guy called Jamin. So shout out to you, Jamin. It's epic. And he says, truth without compassion is abuse, and compassion without truth is enabling.
Right.
And that really got me thinking. And how common is that?
Compassion without truth, especially.
Yeah.
When we tend to, coddle people who need coddling, and then we just re-enable their patterns, and they keep spinning in those patterns, rather than forcing them to step up, to just kind of remove ourselves from coddling and actually give them the opportunity to step up. You're going to have more respect for a person who's going to meet you halfway, not the one that you bring up.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact.
And you've got to get to that place as well. You've got to get your ego out of the way in the first instance to be able to receive feedback. Because if you take everything personally, you're never, and this is where I was at many years ago, especially in my relationships.
Yeah.
You tell me something, I'm not in a place where I've done enough work on myself, where I'm ready to hear the shit things about myself. You get defensive, you start deflecting, I'm
the first person to admit that I was guilty of that, and I still am. That's the thing. It's just like that never-ending process that you actually have to be so hyper aware and just put your ego, because beyond it all, when you're in a relationship, and if it's a conducive, healthy relationship, beyond it all, like the foundation is love and respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Once you ascend that foundation, that's all this stuff in the middle is ego stuff, like this soup of our emotions and traumas and past patterns. That's that ego soup. And once you start messing in that ego soup and not descend again to your foundation, that's where problems happen and develop.
And we've all bumped into a few of those
Yeah.
for a lot of failed relationships, no doubt.
Yep. That's why one of the things, so talk about optimization in relationships, we actually established a little relationship contract.
I love this.
Yeah.
I think this is huge, because I feel like relationships, business, all the same thing. You have to have a clear vision, right? You have to have like the same end goal, because if you don't, you've kind of fucked from the get-go, really. Like if I want kids, you don't want kids, we've already got a bit of an issue here.
Right.
So what does the relationship contract look like with you guys?
Man, we discussed literally everything. It's like the timeliness, the sexual encounters, it's like the growth, the development, just everything. We put it in a contract that empowers us to be better humans, because there are three things. It's like I'm caring about myself, I'm caring about my partner, and I'm caring about the relationship. So the relationship has those three entities, really. It's not just you, me, and us separately. It's just actually those three different entities. So we just outline every single thing on it, and now we refer back to it. And if something is not working, we kind of address it. Hey, this is in the contract. Just saying. So
I really want, I've got this mental picture of you just doing a slide presentation and you're going, please take note of point 7.4b.
Pretty accurate.
You did not turn up on time and I had to wait for you to get ready. Not happy about that. Wasn't
Actually, talking about time, that's something that I'm still working through, because I was in the military, and that's something that is like, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. And that mindset, really, when I left the military, I really rebelled against it. So everything that was instilled by the military, I went the opposite way. It's like we couldn't grow a beard. I had to shave for like 6 years straight, pretty much. Every single day I had to shave my face. It's like, I'm definitely having a beard. It's like, it's just one of those silly things that my inner child is actually, it's like I'm rebelling against all the bullshit that I've been indoctrinated into, I was
about to say that. You sound like a rebellious kid. I'm just not doing it because
yeah, exactly.
I'm not.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because certain things are actually not conducive, like timeliness, for example. So that's something that I'm actively working on, and whoever is watching or listening to this, if I do not turn up on time, let's create some sort of a punishment system, because that's how it works for me. However, it does not work for my partner. That was an interesting thing. You see, when we were establishing our relationship contract, she's driven by like encouragement, by gifts, or by things that motivate her. Whereas I learned to be punished. If I don't do this, this what happens. So that was a very interesting discovery.
Yeah. And how did that then play out?
Ultimately, we just decided, hey, this relationship is not to punish each other. We're trying to, evolve and be happy, not to be miserable and kind of, scold each other for stuff that we don't do. It's like, when we do things, we celebrate it. When we don't, it's we acknowledge it and then try to improve. So that was a new take for me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful little reward system that you
right,
have
exactly. Reward-based relationship rather than punishment-based, which is, again, most of us have that. The whole conditioning in society, and especially again military, was that another layer of that enforced those patterns. For my family, it was the same thing. So it was just rewiring that. It's like, oh, rewards. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I can live with that.
I'm impressed that you turn up on time. I'm shit with time. It's one of my things as well. I think I've always been rebellious. I don't like to do what I'm told. And that always plays out in my relationships. Right. It always used to. It would get to a certain point where my little boy inside's going, fuck you, stop telling me what to do. Right. And then you just start rebelling for no reason against your partner. It even got to a point in a past relationship where everything she was saying, I even, like, intrinsically, I knew it was right. I knew it was a good thing. She was encouraging me to close down this business that I had that wasn't making me happy. She was like, you should just fuck it off. But my pride and my little boy was going, I will not do it because you told me to.
Exactly.
And ultimately, I carried on doing it, burning myself out, getting chronically depressed. And then afterwards, I was like, fuck, she was fucking right. Fucking shit.
Man, I feel that so much. It happened to me too many times. And then now less and less at this point, because again, that we were talking about this, how important it is to have a self-aware, integrated partner where they're not carrying their stuff, or they're carrying their stuff. Everybody's carrying their baggage, in the relationship, into the relationship, but them handling it like adults and then facing their stuff and actually addressing it in real time. That's a skill. That's a skill that needs to be taught, and every single relationship. Yeah, optimization. That's again optimization. It's like you don't want to have those patterns play out over a 3-year period and then realize that, okay, this is horrible. It's like I'd rather see those patterns now that I'm aware of what to look for in the first couple of months. It's like, I know this is not going to work. But how many times also we don't listen to that? Oh, I know this is not going to work, but maybe, it's like, no, there's no maybe. It's like you have that gut feeling it's not going to work.
So when you're working with someone, I think a key part of that is creating that gap between stimulus and response. Because initially it's like, this has happened, I don't like it, react, deflect, etc., etc. In your line of work, obviously you have to try and tap into that. How do you start to really create those foundations for people when they're trying to move into a more positive relationship style?
Man, so relationships are just in general, everything. It's all about asking right questions. It's all about discovering what is underneath the surface, because we're so obsessed with the surface level stuff, and then we're actually, all the power lies is on that foundation. And most people spend most of their lives on the surface, just in that ego soup, and never touch the foundation. And that's a problem. So by asking questions, by helping them reflect on certain patterns that they're engaging in, that's how we tap into that. And again, it starts with basic, simple things. It's just like anchoring practices. For example, for your biology, if you want to optimize your sleep, right? Expose yourself to sunlight in the morning. Don't use your phone without blue light blocking glasses, or don't scroll on Instagram right before you go to bed. Like those simple things that we actually establish, they start moving the needle, create that momentum that is super simple, that they can do every single day for a week or two, and then we can progress and descend closer to the truth and the stuff that actually matters.
So would you say like a key to human optimization is essentially the compound effect, the small incremental steps that you can make on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Consistency. That's it. Because when you think about it, for example, like the prime example would be doing push-ups, right? So if I do 100 push-ups twice a week, right? That's going to be that's gonna be 200 push-ups, right? And if I'm
You
doing,
got that.
yeah,
You got
thank
that one. We had a
my
little
math is
minute.
good. I'm an engineer, you know. Yeah, but and if I'm doing 20 push-ups every day for like every single day for 7 days, that's gonna be, or let's say 30. So that's gonna be 210. That's already more, and you're not exerting that amount of stress on your body. You're kind of building it up. Again, it's not a great example because your body, like from the muscular standpoint, it needs rest and all that, but that compound effect, and it starts building. And that's the thing. Sometimes when you do those 100 push-ups, you're going to be sore for the next 5 days. You don't want to do it anymore. But when you have those smaller inputs, you're actually more likely to stick with them because they're so small. They become second nature. They become habits. So that's the thing. That is like my approach, is the minimal effective dose. What is that minimal input that you have to integrate into your life that is going to yield maximum results, that maximum output? So like tiny little things that are going to move the needle the most, and then you start building them. How do you actually integrate that into your life? Because every single person can overthrow their lifestyle with anything. It's like what I'm doing right now, this silly challenge where I'm running 10K every day for 30 days. It's like anyone can do that really with fitness, right? It's like I want to get in shape. I'm going to go to the gym every single day. Again, it's not health, really. It's not healthy. And then after that, chances are you're going to completely fall off the wagon. If you fall off the wagon, you don't want to go back on because you remember how painful and miserable that was. Rather than those small little steps, they kind of compound, and they're so much more pleasurable over time. So
yeah, I feel like this is really similar in terms of into diets, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that I've often heard this. They say, what diet's the best? What should I do? Should I go keto? Should I be vegan? It's like, no, you should do the fucking diet that you can actually live with.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the one that actually works for your lifestyle? Because that's the one that's going to make you happy consistently over time. If you go vegan, you fucking hate it, you're just going to stop one day and go, sod that.
Right.
I'm not doing it anymore. And it's the same with everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is, because I'm asked all the time. That's something that is in my background as well, nutrition consulting and nutrition coaching. And people ask me, what is the best diet? And I tell them, the best diet is the one that works for you and that you're going to stick to. That's it. It's that simple. But obviously there are so many variations and variables. And once you get into athletic performance and brain performance, there are variables, but the fundamentals are all the same for every single human. Pretty much the fundamentals are the same. And you can get into fancy stuff and compensate for your shitty lifestyle with the fancy stuff if you don't have the foundations, because that's like building a massive house, massive tower on a porous foundation. And that's obviously you're setting yourself up for a disaster.
Yeah, I suppose it's like a vegan just eating sweets all the time. It's like, yeah, you are
Right.
a vegan.
Yeah.
Congratulations, well done for that. But you've also got diabetes now because you're living on fucking chocolate or whatever, you know?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. And it's like diet is not religion. We don't need to identify with one thing in order for us to be healthy. And there's biochemical individuality, and how keto, for example, a great tool to become metabolically flexible. So a great tool, temporary tool that you do for 8 to 12 weeks to train your body to be able to burn both ketones and glucose for energy. That's an amazing tool. But again, not something that you want to do for life. And it's chances are you're not going to stick to it. Same thing with calorie counting. It's like most fitness professionals, unfortunately, still to this day, teach people how to count macros. And that is the only thing that people learn. Once they stop counting macros, or they know that they overate, they avoid that. And then that's their only anchor and only skill that they have in their toolkit. Once that goes out of the window, they stop eating healthy at all. So that's not conducive.
Yeah. So what's the next move? So say you reach your macros, you're done there. What would be a more sensible approach to take?
More sensible approach is learning the fundamentals of what your body needs. So, for example, eating until 80% full. It's like that's one of the massive skills, foundational skills that pretty much nobody uses. Because
I'm fucking terrible at that. I love food, man. I'm just like shoveling it into my face.
And that's a problem, because our the hormones that are engaging in our body is like the ghrelin, the leptin. It actually has the delayed response. Our brain registers it about like 15-20 minutes in. So when we actually eat until 80% full, and then our brain registers it, we're actually properly full, because our brain has that delayed reaction. Another thing is actually eating in a parasympathetic state. So before you eat, rather than grab and go, which I did today, or because I was trying to stomach things again, this running thing has been silly. So I've been having some troubles and problems throughout it. But anyway, if you actually sit down and take a few deep breaths, actually get yourself into that parasympathetic state, your enzyme excretion is upregulated. You're actually preparing your body to digest, rather than when you're in the sympathetic state, your body's still thinking that it's fighting, it's doing something. Then digestion takes the back seat, and then no wonder people have digestive problems and gastric issues. It's like it's normal, because you're not sitting down and eating in a relaxed state.
Which is actually called rest and digest, right? It's actually there for a reason.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you've got like the rest and digest, and obviously you've got the fight or flight, which is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Right. What happens to the body when you start eating when you're in a fight or flight?
Man, so as I was saying, it prioritizes different things. Yeah. So sometimes even if we're eating, for example, and we're reading our work emails and something pops up, it's like your body registers. Sometimes, again, we think that scrolling is this mindless habit that we do and it's not affecting our body. It actually is. Our body picks up on every single thing. Now these bright lights are gonna make my body crash later on, because our body's not meant to be exposed to these kind of bright lights at a certain hour. And artificial light in general is actually it saps our energy, in fact. So ultimately, what was the question again? You see, it was like I started talking about lights. Yeah.
What actually happens to the body? So when where does the energy go? What actually happens when you start eating, and why is it not able to digest that food?
Yeah, so that's since our body's focusing on dealing with something else, with the stressors that are in our environment, it's not taking the time to get into that parasympathetic state and actually start digesting. And that's why we have to dedicate some time to our meals and to relax, to sit down and hopefully with our loved ones and share that experience, rather than watching TV, scrolling on Facebook, or watching YouTube videos while eating.
Yeah, the phone thing is a huge one for me. So I have like a general rule, like I will not look at my phone in the morning. And that's because my headspace in the morning needs to be reserved for me.
Absolutely.
As soon as you start looking at your phone, you're being pulled from pillar to post by your business, by your friends. It's all other people's problems.
You started in a reactive state. Yeah,
exactly. And at that point, I notice like I suppose anxiety is anxiety to a certain extent, because I'm thinking about what I need to do, the tasks that I need to accomplish. And I also feel drained just from looking. I know I'm getting those little quick dopamine hits, which then deplete my brain. And I don't get the fulfilling dopamine hits from actually like accomplishing tasks. I'm just looking at crap, you know? And I find that that's literally probably the most damaging thing I can do, I think, to ruin my day.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's the thing with technology in general. We can dive into that. Optimization with that. I actually fight technology with technology. So from app blockers to just timers to just literally flipping my phone into airplane mode, putting it away and like across the room, or I even lock it in the room. And so I don't have that, I faced some resistance and I'm gonna start scrolling, because that's gonna give me a relief. Yeah. So you actually moving through that resistance creates neuroplasticity, creates a new feedback loop in your brain that is going to reinforce a good pattern in the future.
Yeah, it actually it devastates me how reactive we are as human beings. Yeah. The things that I've learned that I do unconsciously. The phone, another classic example, is like the classic avoidance technique for how you're feeling, whatever that may be. And the reason why it's such a problem in the morning is when you wake up, you're a pussy when you wake up. You're at your weakest. You're not feeling. I always find out I wake up, I'm not that motivated. All the things. The last thing you want to be doing is a 10K run. The first thing you do when you open your eyes. And that's you're most vulnerable. And if you can get that little dopamine kick by just scrolling without leaving the comfort of your bed, you do it, don't you?
Hell yeah. It's like, and there are so many great people, or I guess smart people behind the screen designing that stuff to be addicting. And that's a problem, man. It's like, imagine like 100 masterminds behind the screen writing the code and creating these behavioral adaptations for us to spend more time on those apps. Like there are some smart motherfuckers doing that stuff, you know? So it's like you fighting that is actually, it needs to be proactive, because if we are in that by default state, we're never going to be able to overcome it.
I think this is what you do so well. You essentially create a framework You kind of like, there's contingency plans here. Like, you take into account, okay, this is the deficits we have as human beings.
Exactly.
These are the steps that you can take to protect yourself from yourself.
Precisely. That's it. Like, work with your human nature. Don't fight against it, because the human nature is gonna be here. It's been around for millions of years, and us expecting that, you know, one chip in our brain is gonna change it all. Well, that's probably not gonna happen in our lifetimes. So just work with that human nature. Understand the anchors that are gonna keep you on the direction that you want to go to. And again, there are going to be deviations. When people look at, you know, from where you are to where you want to be, nobody, not a single person, most disciplined, most successful person never made it in a straight line. It's always weaving and just going back, and it's a mess.
Yeah, it's always a fucking mess.
Yeah.
It's always like a few steps forward, a few steps back,
Right.
you know, and it's just, we just get better at managing that as time goes on, I think.
Yeah. And then again, people who achieve their goals, then they kind of start resting on their laurels, and instead of establishing that new normal, establishing another step that they can step into, they just stay there. And that's a problem. That's something that I'm really repulsed by, is mediocrity. Like, being average and being mediocre, that's just something that it just disgusts me, just angers me.
I feel you on. Literally, I spoke about, I think it was in the conversation I had with Brian Kelly. We were talking about, I hate it as well. I feel that same passion, the dangers of mediocrity, because that is the thing that makes you stand still.
Yeah.
If you're in pain and you're in suffering, you will do something to change it.
Get out of it.
Yeah. If you're really happy, fantastic. But if you're in the mediocre zone, you do fuck all, and you just accept a really shitty way of living. And that's horrific to me. That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. And that's a problem, because I was born into that as well. So I was born in that average where I'm good. Like, I don't really have to worry about things. I don't have to worry. I'm not on the survival mode. I'm not really, again, in Lithuania, 20,000 people. In the town that I was born and raised in, there's not much competition. It was just a lot of Soviet mentality, and everybody's trying to fuck each other over. But that's kind of just that aside, it was pretty laid back. I had a pretty happy family, again, with their patterns and the things that they passed on to me. By all means, like, we all have that, which is okay, because they were doing the best they could at that point. So and ultimately that would have ended me probably, I don't know, just becoming an alcoholic. Very, very likely, you know, in that environment.
Yeah.
And because of my family history or my grandparents and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, very likely that it would have happened. But I had a chance, fortunately, to study in the States. And then once I moved out there, I realized that I wanted to stay, and I just don't want to go back to Lithuania. And then I got a cushy job as a civil engineer. I was like, I can do this, just make decent money, and then just have a job, right? I never, because that was already like that dream come true, that American dream. A Lithuanian boy from a town of 20,000 people. He's in the United States. Now I'm good. I'm taken care of. And then,
how did that happen, by the way? What was the transition there?
that was through military. So
okay.
Actually, I was when I was 18, I joined the military in Lithuania because I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life, and that kind of carried me into. So long story short, I wanted to go to Afghanistan. That was my goal. I went through boot camps. I went through like a machine gunner's course. I was going to be that guy on a Humvee with a machine gun. And I was ready to go. I was ready to roll. But one of the few great leaders that I faced on that path in the military, he actually sat me down and asked great questions. And that's what I do right now. It's like, I'm paying back, you know. It's like, you got to ask right questions sometimes. And he asked me, he's like, what are you actually doing? Why do you want to do that? And I didn't really have a good reason. I gave some bullshit responses on a surface level. But once he dug into it, it's like, yeah, you don't really want that right now. So then I ended up going to officer school in Lithuania. And that created an opportunity for me to study in an officer school overseas in the United States, because we have that NATO contract with the US military. And that ultimately led to me staying in the States and just continuing with a civilian career. And from there, I recognized that, hey, this is not what I want. I felt good. It's like I felt taken care of, but I realized this is not my mission. This is not something that I really want to give to the world. So then started looking for myself and trying to find myself. I was doing some nutrition consulting work on the side because that's what I was passionate about, but I didn't realize that I can make that into a career. And that so slowly but surely it was fitness and nutrition. It was just all these optimization modalities started piling up and building on top of each other. And then I realized once the physical part, I don't know if I told you the story, but when I was 13, I had kidney stones at the age of 13. I ended up in a hospital ward with these old men who were on their deathbed. Ultimately, it's like I spent most of my childhood in hospitals. I had a heart condition. I had asthma. I was like a feeble child who was just a mess, man. This lanky, tall kid.
Definitely turned that around, mate.
Yeah. that was it, man. That was my entry point into optimization. I thought, okay, so this is what you do. If you look good, you feel good, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But that's not the case at all. And I ultimately ended up turning that around. But then other inefficiencies popped up. I had some sleep problems. I had some nutrition problems, and then I dialed in the whole physical component. It's like, what's next? It's like, okay, how to become a better leader, how to become more efficient at what I do on a day-to-day. What about the mindset, the subconscious programming that I need to rewire in order for me to actually truly tap into my full potential? All that stuff that is actually wired in there that is not serving me right now. How do I reprogram that? And I just became obsessed and I still am, to actually just undo the damage that has been done by conditioning, by society, by just everything, by myself, obviously, as well, to take responsibility and ownership for that in order for me to actually become that optimized human.
Yeah, it's a similar journey for myself. I got into personal training. I was very focused on improving my physicality for a very long time. One thing I didn't realize at the time was I wanted to improve my physicality because of the reason how I felt inside.
Right.
Wasn't aware of that at the time, but at least I learned some skills in terms of improving my body, and that was an interesting path. And then I started getting into psychology, and now wanting to improve my mind. And then it gets to a certain point with psychology, then it's like there's almost like a threshold there as well. There's like a whole different level when you start really having to go into your subconscious and really working about that programming. Right. I mean, it's covered in psychology to an extent, but when you start really looking at all the traumas that we have and how it's all combined and how everything is just amalgamating into this one big issue that leads to so many behaviors that you are completely unaware of.
Right.
It's such a weird space to be. And it's like this whole new world. It's like self-development gets this certain point where you can access with the mind, and then you need to kind of drop into the body and work out what the body's doing.
Yeah, man, that's what meditation led me to. Meditation, plant medicines, actual plant medicines showed me some stuff, but the biggest thing was definitely meditation. So those few 10-day silent meditation retreats, Vipassana, and just exploring my body, exploring my mind, and seeing how things work. Man, you can't be blind to the stuff that is going on in your body. All those ultimately, what do you call them? I'm actually drawing a blank on what's called what to even describe them as, dysfunctions, if you will.
Yeah.
That you actually identify in your body. They're all stored in our physicality. We're just those spiritual beings carrying out all the stuff in our meat suit. And in order for us to reprogram all that stuff and actually become aware of it, we have to first become aware of our body and develop that sensory acuity that we can actually feel that where it is and what is it that is happening. Yeah. So again, I'm super grateful to David. Obviously, he's taught me a lot and kind of was one of the inspirations for me to to explore that modality in depth. And yeah, I never looked back since. And that was one of the things. Like seeing things more clearly rather than living in this illusion and that ego soup that I referred to previously. We don't want to live our lives in that illusion. We actually want to see things as they are, not as we want them to be.
You want to be a conscious being rather than a fully unconscious one,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing for me as well. So through like personal training and training my body, I developed a certain level of awareness about my body and what it's going through. But it's only when I started meditation, I did like a Vipassana retreat in Thailand, and just the simple idea of doing a body scan. I realized so for anyone that doesn't know, a body scan is where you think about the sensation of a particular part of your body. So you go top of your head, your eyes, nose, you work your way down. And you lose focus so many times. You start thinking about something else. And I couldn't actually think about certain parts of my body. I couldn't even zero in on the sensation of a part of my meat suit, as you call it. What a weird place to be, that you actually don't have that level of awareness. I couldn't feel my elbow while consciously thinking about it, you know? And it's only when you keep developing and doing it over time that eventually you can actually feel your own body.
Right.
How fucked is that?
And no wonder that we're so easily distracted. No wonder that we actually don't have any sensory acuity. And then because dopamine hits, those repetitive dopamine hits that we get take us away and further from our bodies, from ourselves. So yeah, man, it's a bit of a mess, and it takes a while to decondition all of that.
Yeah, I'm very much on that journey now. Obviously, it started with meditation. Now, obviously, moving into the tantra world, there's lots of different practices and stuff moving into the body, and it's just opening up new stuff. I actually realized that I've not felt emotions to a larger extent most of my life.
Oh, let's talk about that.
I mean, that's a serious level of optimization right there.
Yeah.
I just did, when Matilda was talking to me, that's my girlfriend, by the way, she was like, what do you feel in your body? And I was like, well,
what do you mean?
What the fuck are you talking about? I can tell you what I'm thinking right now. And I'll be drawing a blank sometimes.
Right.
I'm so confused by this really simple question. I don't feel feelings.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
Precisely. No, man, because so we as men, we're conditioned to that.
Yeah.
We're in our head most of the time, and we rationalize, we compartmentalize the feelings, and we actually just tie logic around them. And I'm so guilty of that, because if I didn't tap into any of this spiritual world and like the plant medicines and meditation or any of that, I would have been like that perfect textbook person for a model citizen of like a perfect engineer, because that's how my brain works. It's like I create these little compartments, and then I build this massive, ice castle around me, and then I see how everything works intellectually, and then I'm good. I was like, I don't need to let anyone in if I don't want to, and if I do, I'm keeping like a little, just everybody at an arm's length. But that's not where true happiness, true love actually lies, because us breaking that ice wall and actually going back into our body, getting vulnerable, getting uncomfortable with these things that are happening in our chest sometimes, like, oh my God, I'm feeling things moving through me. We're missing out on a human experience. We're missing out on such a massive part of the human experience.
Yeah, one thing that kind of hit home with me is like, in order to feel things, like if you want to feel ultimate pleasure, everyone wants to feel the highest spectrum of pleasure, right? Everyone wants that, and nobody wants to feel the shitter sides. But it's actually impossible to reach the highest states of pleasure without experiencing the other one, because you don't have the full spectrum of emotions. One emotion I was always connected with was anger, because it's a safe emotion, especially for men, right? There's nothing vulnerable in anger. If anything, it's protection. Like if I feel sad, I feel shame. If I just get angry about it, all of a sudden it's get the fuck away from me.
Right. Again,
protection. And it's only when you realize that under the anger, there's often a sad little boy in there, or there's a feeling of shame that you're covering up with that other sensation. And that was all just new to me and painful to start digging into.
Man, so painful. I can relate to it so well, because again, my conditioning, I was raised in Lithuanian post-Soviet environment where they just got out of the Soviet Union, and then it was just that conditioning that we don't have feelings are for bitches. That kind of mentality is like, I never heard the words I love you from my dad. I never said I love you to my dad up until a few years back, where I was like, it was so difficult, it was so awkward. And obviously he got extremely awkward when I was bringing that up, of course, because he's a dad, so that just expressing our emotions and what's happening in our bodies, that's actually real courage. That's actually real strength. That strength is found in softness, and that's something that I could not really wrap my head around, because I had to feel stuff. So
that's the tough bit.
Yeah,
it's powerful. Yeah. What role did plant medicine have in you connecting with that?
Seeing things more clearly, because a lot of people actually, unfortunately, when they go on plant medicine journeys and they're exposed to to certain blind spots, they see them, and then once they get out of the ceremony, they pretend that it wasn't there. And that's the unfortunate path. And if you don't have someone who's supporting you through that journey, who doesn't call you out on the stuff that you just saw, and you can't deny that you just saw, but you can. If you're not called out, obviously, then you just move on with your life. You don't reintegrate anything, because neuroplasticity is such a complex thing. So for us, in order for us to change our brain chemistry, to change our like synapses that are connecting the neurons, we have to pay attention for an extended period of time, not just once. So it showed me a lot of things that I was blind to. And then it took me work, intentional work. It's like, okay, what do I do with this information? How do I actually apply? What is that practice on a day-to-day basis? Again, that 1% every day that is going to help me grow and help me overcome the blind spot that I had.
Yeah, so we're back on that structure. We're back on that framework again.
Yeah.
I think this is where people get really fucked up with plant medicine as well. This is where it's misused to a certain extent. People, what you get from it is a new perception, a new level of awareness. But if you do nothing with it, it's no good having realizations every other day, going into ayahuasca every other day. You know, what's the point in that if you don't actually change your life, unless you want to be on ayahuasca for the rest of your life? Not sure I'd advise that.
Yeah, probably not.
It'll probably be quite fun.
Yeah, it would be. It would be actually. Yeah, I feel like I don't think you could stomach that much, but anyway, it's like ultimately taking a helicopter to the top of Mount Everest rather than climbing it. Yeah. And meditation is something that. So yeah, applied medicine was that helicopter that I took, and it put me on the top of that mountain. Meditation was something that I actually was able to make it to the top on my own. Yeah. And re-explore that and the depth of experiences and the paths. The path is like, as cliche as it is, but every cliche has a good reason behind it. They're cliches for a reason because they have great lessons. It's like, it's about the journey, not the destination, man. You learn so much on the way.
Yeah. There is no other way.
No.
It's weird. I always find this with cliches. Like when I was younger, you always hear them, you kind of ignore them. And then it's only as you get older that you encounter experiences of your own that suddenly they click and you go, oh yeah, that makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We tend to ignore them because of that, familiarity bias that we create around them. It's like, oh, I've heard it, so hence I know it. Like one of the biggest things that I teach my clients and people I work with is to know and not to do is not yet to know. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like I know a lot of things. I know a lot of things intellectually. If they're not integrated, if they're not appearing in my day-to-day, I don't know them. That's the thing. It's like health optimization, things that that's the thing. Like I identified about 25 habits that are necessary in order to just be the most healthiest optimal self. Those 25 habits, I'm still tweaking. It's like I never at this point, it's like there's never been a point where I had 25 out of 25 just going on in the background just the whole time. It's never happened. And the beauty of it is that you recognize that and you know what adjustments you need to make. It's that simple. Yeah.
Where are these 25 habits? Where can people find this?
I'll give it to the audience. Yeah, I'll actually give you a little handout where you can simply go through those habits, like check the boxes. They're there for a reason. They're actually been created through, it's research based. It's just very actionable because you can actually check the boxes, see what you're doing and what you're not doing. And then once you're done checking the boxes, realize, okay, these are the ones that I'm not doing. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to do this one thing and just one thing only for the next 2 weeks, every single day, without a fail. And then once you get that out of the way, it feels kind of effortless. You don't need to put in that much, that mental effort into it. That's it. Move on to the next one, and then keep building them. And then one of them slips, and it doesn't mean that you have to throw everything out of the window. It just seems that, okay, we were actually taking a step back, readjusting things, moving forward. Always moving forward. Fail forward. It's like business, life. Again, it's all incremental. It's never going to be from 0 to 100. And just that sober reality and sober clarity on where you are, where you want to be, what are the steps that you get to take, and what's getting in your way. If something is getting in your way, if you have subconscious patterns, how do I rework them? It's a very predictable and pretty simple process, really.
Yeah. Again, it's that awareness about how the human mind works. It all comes down to neuroplasticity when it comes to building habits, right? You've got to make it easy.
Right.
And it's never going to be easy. It's never enough just to want it in the first instance. Yeah. Because the brain that you have when you initially want it is not the same in terms of physical structure as the brain that you have when you're doing it and you have it.
Yep.
So how the fuck do you expect to get to this end destination with a different brain? You have to slowly build it. You have to
Right.
create it, don't you? And that's why I love your building blocks analogy, because essentially what you're doing with your brain, right? You're just putting the little pieces together, creating the brain that you want, and then makes it possible to achieve what you want.
Precisely. And the illusion, another thing actually with goal setting and just personal development is that there's a certain illusion of how you're going to feel when you get to that next step. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter how you're going to feel. It really does not matter that much, because you're not going to feel the way you actually feel like you're going to feel. And if your why is not attached, if that's that reason that you're going after it is not bigger than yourself, and if you don't have a good support system, it's very unlikely that you're going to achieve it. Because there are so many things that I know I can do, and I know I would be able to accomplish, and there would be like just very, let's say, easy cash or easy thing to reach. I was like, at this point, I'm hyper aware that if I do that, I'm just wasting my time and deviating from the path that I'm supposed to be on. But that's the thing. Most people, I guess, it doesn't make me better or worse. I just explored this enough to have that awareness. But for most people, that exploration and actually deviating and trying new things and developing themselves in that single dimensional space, it can be beneficial. I know for me at this point, it isn't anymore.
Yeah. So what does human optimization look like for you? What are you trying to focus on now to get to the best of where you want to be?
You see, now I'm playing with. So I'm always going back to the fundamentals. I reflect a lot, journal, and evaluate myself on a regular basis. I play with optimization tools like a continuous blood glucose monitor that a little needle tracks my blood glucose every 15 minutes. One of the best data points, in fact, that you can discover about yourself, because you know how you react, how your body reacts to certain foods and certain meal ingestion, the timing, and all of that. Just biochemistry, so looking at my blood test, my microbiome. Just when it comes to the physical optimization, I'm just always trying new biohacking modalities, and I'm trying to really incorporate the things that are going to stick. Once again, to make them simple, make sure that I'm going to stay consistent with them, because otherwise they're not really worth doing at all. So that's one of the things. Another thing, I'm always trying to optimize what's between these ears, that personality that I'm trying to live up to, right?
Who's that?
Well, that is obviously my higher self, the person who sees things as they are, not as I want them to be. Because I still have my blind spots. I still have the things that I want to work through, and I identify them, and then keep building and keep moving towards that. So whether through hypnosis, through meditation, through all those modalities that help me overcome those little patterns that it's like, hey AJ, this is not conducive. This is not something that you want to maintain long term. And other stuff, again, always being a better leader, because my team is growing. I'm stepping into like a new and different role. We're releasing a human optimization coaching certification fairly soon, so that's gonna change the role and the people that I'm managing at the same time. And I haven't done that since my corporate and military days. I was like, I'm great at doing consulting. And it's like, I get in there, I see how things work, and then identify inefficiencies, fix them, get out. Now I'm going to be a part of that machine, like at the top of that machine, the person who's coordinating all those things. So that's going to completely change. And again, that's going to have another layer of growth added on to me, and something that I have to deal with.
So right now you're moving more away from doing the job yourself, and you're kind of hiring a team of consultants essentially and managing them.
Exactly. So now I'm ultimately going to just distill, or I have distilled the knowledge that I've accumulated, and just the mastery over human optimization, the level of mastery that I've reached at this point, and it's always constantly growing. Now I distilled that, and we're gonna release a certification where we can have human optimization coaches actually passing on that knowledge and that structure and that coaching modality to more and more people, and making, as I said in the beginning, just making more optimized humans in the world. Yeah, just producing them.
That's going to have a positive impact, man.
Absolutely.
I want to see exactly what that looks like. So let's take from an initial client, say sales to be your client from the get-go. How would the process start for someone who's looking to start on this journey?
What I do is ultimately, and people who trained by me, they identify the inefficiencies, the things that are actually the most important needle movers, and then double down on those. It's like, what is that one or two things that are going to create that momentum behind them and just move them forward as quickly as possible? And from there, we actually, again, for example, when I'm on a call, on the first initial call before people become my clients, I just point out their patterns, because I've seen them in myself. I've seen them in so many people. I was like, I know exactly what they're going through. So I'm going to point out these patterns. It's like, okay, so you know what you need to change. Now changing it can take next 5, 10, 15 years if you're doing it on your own, or there's a system that helps you overcome every single one of those. That's it. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. So just ultimately having that awareness is the first step, and then you have a choice. Once you actually know your blind spots, you not taking, that's just so on you. At that point, you're just, it's a no-brainer to actually take action. But if you choose not to, I mean, what else can you do? You can lead the horse to the water. You can't make them drink that water, right?
Yeah. It's a real big problem. People say that knowledge is power. It's not. Knowledge plus action is power. Exactly. Otherwise, you just got all this information you do absolutely fuck all with. And
I know a lot of things, man. It's like I studied a lot of things from nutritional biochemistry. It's like I don't use those at all. It's like, that's simple action steps. That knowledge translated into simple action steps. Again, mechanism is great to know sometimes, because for our logical brain that we share, it's kind of good. Okay, so that's why this works. That's why I'm going to do it. So it's like that additional layer of understanding, that intellectual understanding is beneficial. But ultimately, it all comes down to action, failing forward.
Yeah, it's a good starting point, knowing, but applying it makes a little bit more of a difference. Yeah, that's really interesting, man. So what's the journey like now? How are you going to move forward with this and overcome your own blind spots?
I'm just going to keep working on myself. It's like so many things. Every single plant medicine journey kind of tells me, it's like, man, you have everything at this point. You've seen it all. All you have to do right now is go back to the roots, go back to your body, go back to your deep meditation and explore what's there, because you have everything within you in order to just blow up and be extremely successful and stay on this path that you've been on. It's like an impact millions of people, because that's ultimately like my goal. My drive is impact at this point. It's like I don't care about myself that much anymore. It's just more of a, how do I reach more people? And the answer is always, you go back to yourself, you go back to yourself, you go back to yourself. But I just want to do another candle ceremony, no, you don't need it.
No. Yeah, that's when you get in that repetitive cycle of just looking for more answers. But it is often the same answer, like you say, isn't it? Just, you've got that awareness now you need to really implement it.
Precisely.
I always think it's really interesting. It always gets to a certain point when your needs are met, then it often becomes about impact. It's very much the case with pretty much everyone in Bali. I feel like everyone's needs are met here very easily. Obviously.
Oh my God. We just can pick a coconut off the tree, It's like it's so easy. We're just living a cushy life. Actually, on that note, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this silly challenge, because I miss that physical anchor of me rewilding myself, of me being pushed physically for an extended period of time, because I remember that my mental acuity, my resilience levels were so damn high when I was going through boot camps. I kind of remember that. It's like, how can I recreate something similar that is going to suck? Not as a boot camp, but still suck enough that is going to re-anchor me to that wilderness, of me and actually my roots. So that's why I'm doing it, to just kind of create that resilience point that I can maintain after that.
It's that danger point of mediocrity again, isn't it? Because
exactly. Yes.
It's there in the background. Because the problem is you get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Life's great. It's brilliant for a little while, but then things start to slip, and before you know it, you've got everything you could possibly want, but you start to feel a bit shitty again.
That's it.
What is it? What do you think it is about needing that hardship to really reconnect and kind of maintain levels of fulfillment and happiness?
Man, because you see, that fulfillment and happiness does not happen at homeostasis. It does not happen in the middle. It happens at the extremes. And as you said before, is like we need that whole spectrum of sensations and emotions, and us being to feel that whole spectrum in order to create that fulfillment and happiness. And that's something that, again, that extreme pushes us to feel more things in our body. This is like a physical challenge, but and it gets me closer to my body, and to realize that, hey, this is something that I don't feel often, and I'm able to feel this, and then that enables other emotions and sensations around it. So I think it's just pushing yourself beyond the point of, again, homeostasis and mediocrity.
Yeah, what other kind of techniques do you use? So like when it comes to like to sauna, to cryotherapy, to cold plunge, all these different things that help build resilience.
All of the above, man.
All of it, just
Yeah.
absolutely everything.
Yeah, no, because I fortunately, again, thank you for David and his amazing facilities at the Astana. It's just have access to that cryotherapy pretty much on a daily basis. Hyperbaric chamber, again, to just boost oxygen in my body and the body cells, to sensory deprivation tank to decompress, infrared sauna to detox, cold plunges as well to just build that vagal tone. Our vagus nerve is the one that drives our parasympathetic nervous system, and actually the stronger the vagal tone is, it is transferable into our day-to-day. So you actually not freaking out and just tensing up when you're entering that ice bath, it is transferable to the real world, because you're able to transition that ability to stay calm under pressure into your life.
That's really noticeable, because obviously I go to Ammo Spa a lot. I use the cold plunges, I use the saunas, and I notice when I'm consistently using the cold plunge, my level of resilience increases over time. I can stay in longer and longer as time goes on. And then when I apply myself to other things I'm not particularly excited about, there's tasks that I need to do, I just find that I've got that bit more drive.
Right.
How does that work with the vagus nerve? What is the process there?
Ultimately, so that wouldn't be vagus nerve in that sense. That would be more of a developing that window of willpower, because willpower is a finite resource, and that's something, again, that we can push the levels on. So I get into that when I actually teach people efficiency, and in order for us to be most efficient human beings, we have to track our sleep cycles, identify which part of the day we actually put out the most productive stuff, and then just double down on those times of the day. And then a lot of us entrepreneurs, especially, we tend to overwork, and that work does not become conducive at a certain point. It's like a rate of diminishing returns. So it's kind of pointless to sit at your computer and stare at it and try to knock something out when you're not at your prime. You would do so much better if you went, played some basketball, went for a boxing class, or just simply took a nap. Yeah. So that's something that, again, that incorporating that rest as a part of your recovery process and your effectiveness and efficiency process, it's a massive thing. So it all compounds. So vagus nerve, your resilience, your willpower, all of it works hand in hand. It's just now pointing out which ones, how do we integrate that?
What advice would you give to, so a lot of our members, they're just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey. Like when they join up to Platinum University, there's so much information. There's so many different business models that they can take advantage of. There's a huge community of like-minded people that it's very easy to get wrapped up in. What would you say would be the best course of action, someone going into that environment and getting the best that they can out of everything that's available?
Great question, man. So first of all, pick one path. Pick one single path and stick to it for a little while and reevaluate. So sometimes there are only two things, really, two problems that we have in life, is we don't know what we don't know, and we don't do what we do know. So first of all, first one is actually what we don't know what we don't know is solved through education, and that's what you guys offer. So you actually staying on that path and actually having someone to help you reevaluate. Okay, so I'm on the right track. How am I going to, is it time for me to shift the business model? Is it something that is not going to work for me long-term? Just, you always have to be sober with the realities. Like, don't, as you said, you were invested in a business that just made you miserable. If you recognize that, you're allowed to change your mind. That's fine. It's like the sunk cost bias that you invested your time and money into this. You can change your mind still. I was like, I still, when I was an engineer, I was like, okay, I hate this, but I'm making good money. I was like, no. I was like, I can change my direction that I'm going into, So pick one path and then celebrate inputs, not outcomes. So you actually mastering inputs is gonna allow you to get the results as a nice byproduct. So you celebrating that 1% every day and that compound interest is going to allow you to get to those results.
Beautiful. And then in terms of efficiency, what would you say are the steps that people can do it in the most efficient way possible?
Man, have a morning routine. Have a morning routine which you don't use your phone, and you do so like a golden morning routine that every single person should have is once you wake up, rehydrate, because we lose so much water through respiration during the night. So rehydrate, step outside, no matter how cold or warm it is, get yourself exposed to that natural sunlight. Do some movement and actually get your body flowing, get your lymph flowing, clear that debris first thing in the morning, whether it's jump rope, a few push-ups, whatever. And then some sort of a spiritual modality and mindset practice. So whether it's meditation or journaling or what I call a morning formula, where you have this identity that you created, the desired identity that you're going after, and you're reiterating that every single day. It's like reminding yourself of the direction that you're going, your why, your mission, and why did you wake up today? Like, you didn't have to wake up, but you did. So now might as well make the most out of it.
Yeah, that's the worst thing. So I have a mission statement that I use, and I like to check in with that.
Right.
Because there's certain days when I don't do that, you kind of think, oh, what the fuck have I got to do today?
Right.
And like, if I don't have a set of tasks or I don't have a meeting or whatever, you fall into this habit of thinking, oh, there's nothing major to do today. That's the danger of mediocrity right there. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's just fine. But the reality is there's always something to do. Until I've had the impact that I want to have on the world, until Platinum University is educating hundreds of thousands of people how to live the lives they want, there's still work to be done. Right. So we've got to keep moving forward.
Exactly.
And reconnecting with that's huge. And it's reminding me, because I keep forgetting to do that this week.
There you go. I'm holding you accountable for it now.
Oh no. Oh, please don't be knocking on my door. The last thing I need is you massive bastard, knocking on my door, dragging me out of bed.
Oh man, I'll do that. Actually, I haven't gone to those extremes, but yeah, I can be a little sergeant sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you got the background for it. So what other steps? So we've covered some really key points here. So this is amazing for people. They've got to get some real clarity about what it is they're doing. They've got to zero in on one thing, and then they've got to do things the most efficient way possible by starting the day right.
Right.
What would you say the next steps are?
Next step would be identify which ones are the most productive work blocks of your day, because all of us have different, again, blood sugar fluctuations and all that kind of stuff that contributes to that. But ultimately, see when you're your most productive self. For some people, for me, for example, it's in the morning. For me, it's from anywhere from 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. That's my golden time, and spend no longer than 90 minutes of concentrated effort in that. And after that 90-minute work block, which I actually take a little mini break in between, like 1 or 2 minutes to move my body. I usually have my little treadmill workstation that I work at. That's my optimized workstation, and I really like that. But if you don't have that, at least move your body every 45 minutes. So 90-minute blocks. At 45 minutes, you take a mini break. After 90 minutes, you're actually just do something that is unusual. Again, for that plasticity, for that learning to actually sink in. Do a handstand if you've never done a handstand, or get yourself in a weird position that you wouldn't normally get into. That helps you mold that and open up that plasticity from the physical. So that physical component, actually doing that before you have that work block and after, is incredibly powerful. And then resting, just actually incorporating some of the silent time, some of the quiet time, because if you spend 3 hours straight at your computer screen, you're going to be so much less productive and going to retain so much less information than if you take a break in between, meditate for 5 minutes and completely decompress. Just it's proven by, I can even include a few scientific papers on that. That's something that you're shooting yourself in the foot if you think that you're being productive and you're really dreading that pause. Those breaks are making it more productive.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, because I think this is a big battle for most entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah.
Every
Absolutely.
entrepreneur ever does this.
Yeah.
And they
100%.
think they're being productive.
Yeah.
They're doing loads of work, but they're just busy.
Right.
Busy isn't the same as productive, right?
It's like, what is it? Don't mistake movement with achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are two completely different things.
Yeah, I used to be terrible for that. I'd get to this point, and then before you know it, you've spent like the last hour putting out pointless tasks. Yeah, you're just kind of doing all these little jobs. You're looking at emails that are kind of irrelevant. You're reading all this crap, and you've actually done nothing of these like most important tasks of the day, right?
Yeah, and start with those. That's a good point, actually. Start with the most important tasks of the day. It's like every single person should write out 3 big outcomes for the day. It's like these are the big 3 that no matter what happens, they get accomplished, and start with those. Once you are done, you can actually add on to whatever the fires that need to be put out or what have you.
I love that. That's an insane value. I'd like to talk a little bit about supplementation as well. So you touched, these are kind of like easy ways to get some of the things that our bodies need. What would you say are like the foundational levels of things that people should be including in their diet to optimize themselves?
So first of all, obviously whole food diet that is as close to its natural state as possible. So that's minimally processed or unprocessed, as non-refined as possible, real whole foods. So whether it's animal proteins, like obviously non-GMO, organic vegetables and stuff like that. And there are so many great ways to make those. It might sound boring, but actually there's so many great ways to make those dishes delicious. It's like you eat a mainly whole food diet. So that's the foundation, obviously. When it comes to supplementation, yes, because of the soil quality and the mineral quality in the soil right now, and the monocropping and all the poor farming practices that are happening right now, we don't get the minerals and the vitamins that we used to like 20, 50 years ago, so supplementing with those minerals, magnesium is a crucial one. Most people are deficient of it, and there are so many enzymatic processes that are dependent on magnesium intake and magnesium present in our body. So those trace minerals, that would be when you're hydrating especially. So trace mineral solution or high quality sea salt, that would be Celtic sea salt, Redmond, red salt from Utah. Just sprinkle some in the water to actually have those trace minerals, because in order for our bodies to absorb that water, it has to have an electrical charge. So our cells have the electrical charge, and if the water doesn't have it, our body doesn't absorb, our cells do not absorb that water properly. So that's a little tip. Actually add a trace mineral solution if you don't like the taste of salt. Again, they're like $10 for a bottle that's gonna last you half a year, or sea salt, high quality sea salt. When it comes to other supplements, would be main fat soluble ones, A, D, E, and K. Those are the main ones that, again, most of us miss out on. So supplementing with those is super crucial. And the most optimal way is actually to do an IV solution. I get an IV about once a month, and it just, you hook yourself up. You can get some work done that are in most cities right now that are not that costly, and it's the most efficient way to get that nutrient boost.
Interesting. Yeah, so I get IVs as well. A route I was interested in is I wanted to get my testosterone levels measured. I wanted to see where those are. And they also have clinics here in Bali where they give you growth hormone and stuff, like a measured levels. What's your stance on that?
I'm not a fan, because you see, endogenously producing all those hormones, once you actually introduce the exogenous source, which is from the outside, it ultimately can trump your natural production. So there's so many great ways to boost growth hormone. Fasting is one of them. I was like, fasting is a non-negotiable for me. After about a 24-hour fast, that's how I put on, actually, in fact, I put on 50 pounds of muscle in half a year doing that. So I would fast for 24 hours. At the end of 24 hours, I would crush a super heavy workout, and then refeed like crazy. Because that's when, after that fast, our growth hormone levels peak. Actually, if you add a sauna session after that as well, before you eat, that even increases that as well. So that's a natural way of increasing your growth hormone. When it comes to testosterone, exposing yourself to natural light. So getting that sensible sun exposure on a day-to-day basis, lifting heavy stuff, again, eating right, not sleep depriving yourself. It's all of those practices that actually can naturally raise your testosterone levels that you don't need any hormonal therapies for.
So you've just given us natural steroids.
Exactly. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
That's it.
I rate that. I won't ever be taking steroids again. I did it when I was younger.
Yeah.
Worst decision I ever made. Made me an absolute lunatic. Terrible idea. And my testicles were absolutely tiny. Nobody wants that.
That's not a nice side effect.
It's not. Nobody's happy with the tiny testicles. Nobody wants to see those fucking raisins. What does your training routine look like right now?
Well, now it's that challenge going on. So 30 days, 10K, just running, just pounding the pavement. And tomorrow is my.
You don't look like a marathon runner, mate. I'm not gonna lie.
No, yeah. Tomorrow is the last day, and usually it's again, as everything is super optimized, it's that minimal effective dose. So I lift once a week. So lifting once a week, that would be picking up and putting down heavy stuff. Like easy protocol is 5x5, deadlift, squats, bench, and shoulder press.
And you do it all on the same day?
Yeah. So that would be like full body. Again, that's another thing that actually increases growth hormone, is when you're targeting your whole body rather than just parts of it. Because naturally, when you're activating muscles around your body and exerting yourself, your growth hormone is going to be produced more than just one concentrated area. So that's one of the things that I'm a huge fan of, like full body workouts. And
will you just to interrupt? Will you do so? You'll do the 24-hour fast, and then you'll do the full body.
Yeah,
that's really interesting to me, because I'm at a place where I used to love heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. Now I like it when I'm doing it, but I don't want to spend hours and hours doing it. I just want to get some good results. I want to get progressively stronger. I want to get it out of the way, and then focus on skill acquisition. I'm more interested in doing boxing, jiu-jitsu, you know, like doing handstands, like kind of anything that's actual skill. That's a really interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, man, that's something that I've been doing, because I don't like the gym. That's one of the things, is like I really don't enjoy spending time in the gym. So it's like, for me, it's get in, get out, as efficient as short as possible. So that's what I do. And when it comes to, so that's one lift a week. Then I do something for my mitochondrial density, and that is something explosive. So 20 seconds, all out, balls to the wall, or I know what
like Tabata?
No, not quite. Balls to the wall. What would be the equivalent for women? Is that balls to the wall? That doesn't matter. Yeah.
Flap to the floor.
Oh. Yeah, that's bad, man. Yeah. So yeah, probably. Yeah. So just go all out as hard as you can for 20 seconds straight. Yeah. With a full recovery. Do that 5 to 8 times once a week. That's a 20-minute workout. So that's actually, it just increases our mitochondria, which is the power generators of our cells, and they're amazing. That's an amazing workout. Another one, would be something high intensity interval training. That's something, this one is optional for me. So Tabata would be 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, just like 18-minute workout, 18 to 20 minutes, I'm done. And then another one would be for my heart health. So that would be 1-to-1 ratio, work to rest. So whether it's rower, skier, running, swimming, what have you, it's like start with 3 minutes, 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, at high sustainable pace. So those 3 minutes have to be painful the whole time. Yeah. And then you do that 3 to 5 rounds, done. You start again progressively increasing that. So it's 4 minutes, 4 rounds, whatever. So
So essentially that's 3 workouts a week.
Pretty much, yeah. And then I walk a lot, I move a lot. As like when I'm taking my breaks, I do a little handstand or whatever. I swing kettlebells. Super minimal.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. What was you were saying about your treadmill when you're working?
Right. Yeah.
What's this walking workstation?
Yeah, just have a little walking pad under my desk. I think the brand is like Show Me Walking Pad. I'm not affiliated with them.
Cue the affiliate link. I was going to say that. Get it in there.
Yeah, I'm definitely not affiliated with them. And it's just I have a little like a laptop stand as well, and then I'm just walking and doing my work.
Shit, if that isn't human optimization covered in this podcast, I don't know what it is. We've covered your training protocols. We've got the fundamentals that you need to get your nutrition in check. We've got efficiency covered, and we've got to get some targets in place and how to prioritize what's important to you. I think you summed everything up in a perfect way for me, my friend.
Well, thank you.
It's beautiful. I think it's a great point to end on. What I'd love to say is, where can people find you? Where can they get more information about what it is that you're doing, about the courses and the coaching that you're providing for people?
For now, the easiest way to find me is just Instagram, human.optimized, and you can connect with me on there. And I always put out all kinds of content. I like writing. I like helping people with my content and actually stirring up some emotions and changing the thought patterns and just helping people understand what is human optimization, what is high performance. You heard it all today. I hope this was super useful, and you're gonna not just know these things, but actually integrate them into your life. And again, start with that one single thing. And I really invite you to, after this podcast, instead of just being inspired or motivated, I trust inspiration as far as I can throw it, man. It's like it's useless. It's just pick one of those things and actually stick to them, start doing them.
I love that, man. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother.
This is the Platinum Podcast.